Yeah, it's only just around the corner, isn't it? It is, of course, the Cheltenham Festival. And here on the Racing Alternative, we do things differently. Now, if you've listened or watched other podcasts or been in real life in some kind of a country hall or something and bid to a Cheltenham preview, after about 30 minutes, I bet you're going to be bored, aren't you? Oh, I wish I could have gone home. I wish there wasn't a jockey on the panel because, quite frankly, they're crap. Well, Stephen Derbyshire's not crap. What he does is he talks to you straight to the point with no messing around. So I'm going to lay it out to you now. We're going to get straight into the podcast, sponsored by NRG.bet. Thank you to them again for sticking with us. We'll do all the big races for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. At the end of each day, we'll touch on the handicaps, only pertinently if we fancy something in the handicaps, not just because, like other podcasts, they have to give a selection. We're not doing that. It's a load of crap. You don't want to be bored. You want to know what we fancy. You want to know what we've had a bet on. And we're going to go bang, 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 bang. Good evening to Mr. Derbyshire, the Lord Lucan of racing all over the place. You think you found him, and then he's gone to the next meeting. How are you, SD?
Yes, correct. I'm great. All ready for air this weekend.
Oh, I'm loving it. And a good week last week, tipping-wise for us once again. Our percentage of winners, our profit to a unit stake, I think, and we haven't done the research, but I'm almost sure is higher than any other weekly racing podcast on air at the moment.
Yes, it's superb. And of course, rubber ball one for you, didn't it?
Yeah, bounced in, didn't it? Yeah. I think it was 5
Very good.
I couldn't believe the price, 11.08 favourite, which was great. And you had a good day at Kelso as well, which was superb.
Yes, lovely up at Kelso. I was there in the rain.
Yeah, bless you. Shall we dip our toes straight in, because this is what we're going to do. Fire through. We're going to say what we think. No humming and hawing. Let's start off with day one on Tuesday. And the Supreme Novices Hurdle, which I think has got loads of strength and depth. We've learnt today that Mighty Park wasn't entered for the Turners, so he will go for the Supreme. But this is arguably one of the best Supremes we've had for many, many a year, Stephen.
It is, isn't it? I think Old Park Star. Do you know what? I've been with Old Park Star all the way through.
You have, yeah.
And I'm just getting those sectionals at Haydock. That final half mile was bloody good. I'll get the negatives out the way first. I don't think Henderson thought this was a particularly good horse early on in the novice campaign.
Yeah.
And, he's probably going to run. I think we know what he's going to run to, which is going to be about 155, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think they're doing the right thing with Talk the Talk. I will come to that later, but I think a larger stamina test will suit. I'm very worried about Mighty Park, though. I'll be as bold to say as I can see the Irish money coming.
Yeah.
Deeply impressive first time up, and this could go off near favourite, and I am scared of him. Look, Idaho's Sun not running helps. I think Sober Glory is going to be better on softer ground.
Yeah, great.
Would I have a bet now? Look, it's a question of, we're here to give people advice. Now, I'm in a nice position. I'm on Old Park Star at 16, so I'll back Mighty Park at 3.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
I think it's between the two. I think El Kairos has an awful lot to find. I think My Daddy Paddy has an awful lot to find. I don't think Talk the Talk will run, and I think Sober Glory needs quicker ground for all the time as electric at Newbury. But I have a feeling they're going to back Mighty Park, and he could be very good.
Okay. I have a very good friend that works for Mullins, who's very, very close to Danny and Patrick, and I speak to him. I have done for 12, 13 years, and I give him my view, and then all of a sudden he will open up if my view matches his. And I did the sectionals for Mighty Park when he won his maiden by 30-odd lengths. And I said to him, I think this horse is an absolute monster. And he said, Paul, this apparently is what's going to happen. Leader Dallier is going to give him a lead in this race. because he needs a lead for experience rather than going off the front. And then Mighty Park will strike for home a long way out. He is a brute of a horse at home. Those sectionals he did on the bridle were outstanding in his maiden hurdle. I backed him for both the Turners and the Supreme a couple of weeks ago. I only managed to get 7-1 on the Supreme. I thought I'd get a bit more. I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say I think he's my nap of the meeting, because if Willie Mullins says he is outright and in open air to everybody, he's a monster, and Mark Walsh says the same, then who am I to disagree? And here's the thing, Stephen, it ties in. I did some manual timings via my TV. It ties in with that. The only thing that can get him beaten, I feel, is inexperience. But if they think this is one of the best Supreme Hurdle horses they've had for many a year, I'm in line. And I'm not even going to lay off my 7-1. I think he'll prove that even Old Parkstar, who's hugely useful and very classy, El Kairos, who has problems jumping a hurdle when he comes under pressure, and even the really classy Talk for Talk, I think he'll put them in his place. And I think Mighty Park could be something special, and there's a chance he'll be even better as a chaser, because I think he'll go chasing next year straight away. So Mighty Park on its own is the one bet I've had, and I will stand by it, and I think he's one of the best, if not the best bets at this year's Cheltenham Festival.
Well, that's strong stuff early. Look, he's going to have to run on his second run to win this? 158?
Yes, because it's a good renewal.
It's a good renewal. As we say, I think connections have finally seen the light with Talk the Talk. I didn't give Talk the Talk a hope in this, I have to say. I give him a hope in the Turners.
Yeah, because he travels so well, doesn't he? Okay, we've got both of us anti-post, two good horses. We both think they're going to run to their form. Mighty Park needs to step up. Maybe your selection does not, but it's such an interesting start to the Cheltenham Festival. Let's go straight over to the Arkle, which many people have termed a two-horse race, ST. Kopek Des Bordes has just one run over fences. Lulamba is a deal more experienced, having won against more experienced and older horses at Newbury. And then it's Cargess, who gets £7 from the two boys, Romeo Coolio, Irish Panther, and Kappa Jai Pike next in the betting. Many people have said how they feel this race is going to be run, and you don't need to be an absolute sage to maybe say the makeup of this race. Of the top two, who do you fancy? And if you don't fancy either of those to win, are you looking for a bit of value elsewhere, Stephen?
Well, I think the winner will come from the top two, because I think they're both potentially very good, but they're both very different horses, aren't they? I've just got this sort of feeling. I don't like the way Lulamba jumps, okay?
You've always said that.
The horse, I've always said it. And the horse reminds me, in the way he travels, a bit of Altior. Now, that might not actually be a bad thing. I'll tell you something. If Kopek and Lulamba are like that coming to the last, you'd want to be on Lulamba, because you know Lulamba will finish the race. It's just a question of, will Lulamba get too far behind and outpace? And ergo, that forces jumping errors, doesn't it? I think it's fascinating. I think it's, Lulamba's been weak on the machine, was under 2-1 for so long. I mean, he's over 9-4 now on the machine. I suspect Kopek might win, but there's a lot of buts and maybes. Look, I've only had one bet in the race, and I might not have another one. So this is what we got to tell people, because they're putting their hard-earned on. I backed Charkesi each way at 10-1 in January. Okay? I'm happy enough with the position. Do I think she'll win? Probably not. Do I think she'll get a place? Absolutely. But would I bet Kopek at 7-4? Probably not. Or Lulamba at 9-4. Now, there's all these bookmaking offers on the morning of Cheltenham, and look, we know a lot of people don't have accounts, don't we?
Yeah.
But if you're lucky enough to have one and there's a boosted price on Kopek, let's say Kopek's 9 or 4 or something, yes, that's a bet. But at the prices, I would favour Kopek, and I think the market is absolutely bang on.
Okay, interesting. Like you, I don't think the prices now lead to me to have any kind of an interest in the top two in the betting. I think Kopek Des Bordes goes there with one run under his belt. I think that's problematic. However classy he is, he's going to have to take a step forward. The lack of experience running at championship pace over the Cheltenham fences for a novice chaser has seen many an exciting horse either fall or not be able to take the fences at speed and lose momentum with one mistake. And that's my problem with Kopek Des Bordes. And early on with Lalamba, you make a very good point with Lalamba. He races lazily early doors, and if they go bang, bang, bang through the first half mile, he could easily lose the race in the first half of the race. Romeo Coolio had a terribly hard race at Leopardstown. I mean, he was out on his feet, even though he won. I've actually backed Romeo Coolio for the Cheltenham Gold Cup next year, because I think even 2.5 miles may not be far enough for him now. But next year, 3 miles.
Might not run here. I don't think. I wouldn't run him.
No, I wouldn't. I'd save him for Punchestown, Aintree and Punchestown, for sure.
Well, I think they could they go into the Sun Alliance, whatever the bloody hell it's
The Brown
called now?
Advisory, yeah, maybe. I thought they might go 3 miles, but they're not going to, because they're so stuck in their ways that they've said the Arkle is going to be his aim all season, and that's the way they're going to go. I've had an each way bet on a horse I know that Patrick thinks so much of, Kappa Pike, number 4 on the card, who twisted Jacob's Ladder in his fingers at Punchestown in a grade 3 on the 11th of January, and I know is very highly regarded. And I think this horse is, well, probably a second stringer to Kopek Des Bordes, but he has got so much potential. A big, scopy, chasing individual that jumps his fences at speed. He's beaten 2 good yardsticks this season over fences, Salvatore Monday, Jacob's Ladder. I don't think he really gets home over 2.5 miles. He didn't over hurdles. And I thought a fast run Arkle would suit him down to the ground. And he's still available at very much a double figure price. And I went in this morning and backed him again for the 3rd time this season. I backed him after he won at Thurles, backed him after he won at Punchestown, and I backed him this morning. And he comes here a fresh horse after a 2-month break. And each way, because you think about it, Stephen, the highly likelihood is either Kopek or Lalamba, at least one of them's going to bomb out. Yeah, I'm almost sure one of them's going to bomb out.
Are you? I'm not sure they'll bomb to the extent that they'll not be placed. I mean,
well, I'm actually going to lay both of them, each of them not for a place. I'm going to, because I think one of them will bomb out. I really do. And I think Kappa Pike is a really, really interesting each way alternative. Would you fancy anything
there we go.
prices, Stephen, at all?
No.
No. Okay. Well,
I didn't look. I know Steel Allies time was good at Warwick, but bloody hell, I don't think Steel Allies are an Arkle horse. I personally think the first two
okay. Good.
are half a stone clear. So there we are.
Okay, that's lovely.
Let's go on to a favourite we can take on, should we?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
But this is getting a little boring because all these other ones who I think the favourites will win, blah blah blah.
But
Champion Hurdle, old boy.
Yeah, favourites may win, but it's a graveyard. I see all these people posting on social media. What's your short priced patent? What's your short priced lucky 15?
No, yeah, you know what? You are banging on people putting these bloody doubles up at short prices.
Jesus Christ. It's a load of bollocks. Champion Hurdle is also probably a load of bollocks. It's probably the worst Champion Hurdle we've seen in absolute ages. And the money today, Stephen, suggests that Lossiemouth will run in this race as opposed to the Mare's Hurdle.
Yes, I think it's just worth going over the frailties in these horses. You know, I am convinced the New Lion does not have the speed to win a Champion Hurdle. I just I just thought I didn't particularly like the Fighting Fit. Well, obviously it came down. I wasn't convinced he'd have won that day. And I certainly wasn't convinced with his winning the Bueller or whatever stupid title that race now has. I think Brighter Days Ahead has shown twice now that she doesn't particularly perform to her optimum at Cheltenham. Look, if Golden Ace won again, she'd be the luckiest horse in training, because I'm sorry, I will upset people. She ain't that good. She isn't. She's probably not as good as Flaky Dove, and Flaky Dove won this, and Flaky Dove wasn't especially good either. Look, I'm on Poinross at fancy prices. Slightly disconcerting. Poinross has gone out in the betting. I'm on Alexei at fancy prices. I wouldn't be surprised if Amsterdam ran well. I think Lossiemouth is the most likely winner. I think they'll come here. I think she might just have a class edge on them.
Okay.
But if you say what would you back now, I would probably split my stake on the Mullins second and third string each way. I thought Poinross was given a very quiet ride at the DRF.
Yeah, naughty.
And I have a feeling, a quick run champion hurdle, we might just see something from Amsterdam.
Okay.
We've been waiting for it, but given, there's more holes in those at the top of the market than a piece of Swiss cheese. I mean, I've seen Christian Williams today in the racing post. Talked to Christian rather a lot. And
Oh, he's your mate, isn't he? Yeah, Christian.
yes, I do know Christian rather well, and he rang me up today. I can't do Christian's voice. He said, "Oh, bloody hell. They've quoted me in the Racing Post." No, but what he said was, Davy Russell, who goes racing in Ireland probably more than you and I put together,
Yeah,
he
cool.
thinks Lossiemouth, she looks a bit of a shell of a horse. Now, how true that is, I don't know. But it's just interesting. I mean, jockeys aren't necessarily good tipsters, but they should be a good judge of horse flesh.
I agree.
So I don't give Tutti Quanti a hope in hell on the ground. I don't know why on earth they've supplemented the horse. I would probably back Poinross and Amsterdam each way, because I think one or both of them could bait the frame. And I think there's a chance they'll win as well.
Okay, if there's the dead eight and they all hold their ground. Lossiemouth for me over sharp 2 miles on the old course is a no-no. She's better off on the new course, as her records suggest. I think Brighter Days Ahead wants deep ground and an absolute helter-skelter of a pace. I've backed a horse that I think will either be placed in this race, if 8 go to post, if 8 go to post at a massive price, or if he doesn't go to the champion hurdle, which he might not, I think he'll win the county hurdle, whatever. And that's the complete outsider, number 6, Work Ahead, who I remember interviewing Henry de Bromhead after he won at Leopardstown in December 24. And he told me he thought this horse was a champion hurdle horse in the making. He then had a serious injury, and he didn't come back until January 26, when he was behind Glen Kill. But a really good line of form in the Reb Mills behind Storm Heart, who I think will win. It's called the MGM hurdle now, isn't it? It's not the Coral hurdle. Beaten a length and a half.
Sorry.
I was told he's 70% fit. Now, I don't think he can win a champion hurdle. I wouldn't be so stupid as to suggest even in a weak year like this. But I think he'll be ridden for a place if he runs in the champion hurdle. If he doesn't, I think he'll go very close in the county. And if Work Ahead doesn't run, and I think they probably will run him in the champion hurdle, I just won't be. I haven't had an anti-post bet, and I then won't have a bet in the champion hurdle itself. I just leave it alone and just laugh at everybody else and what bets they've had in the race, because I'm not interested whatsoever.
Yeah, so there we go.
And that's what you've got to do. You do have the alternative, and just because it's Cheltenham, it doesn't mean you have to have a bet.
No, it doesn't.
You just say no.
And I have to say, I know we're going to move on to the handicaps in a bit, but these handicaps, but the worst thing you can do in a lot of them is get sucked into some of the short ones anti-post. Because what happens is you look at Betfair. I mean, I remember doing it representing Percy, and it was double the price I backed him at, and he won, and I was still sick as a dog. So ever since then, I've gone with a very large rib condom on for betting on handicaps.
Now, can you tell me why in the running order the Mayor's Hurdle is on Tuesday? Any ideas?
Is it?
No, it's not. It's in the running order, but it's not on Tuesday.
Oh,
no,
it's not on Tuesday.
no.
It's not on Tuesday. Producer Adam needs to sharpen his pencil. He sent out 10 o'clock this morning, when he was watching Lorraine Kelly or something. And
We love Adam because he's a class act, but that's
Yes.
a mistake, isn't it? Okay.
Yes, it is a slight mistake.
Handicaps for the opening day, the Juvenile Hurdle, the Ultima Handicap, and the National Hunt Challenge Cup. Any of those you want to mention? Have you got a value bet? Have you had a bet already?
I have bet one horse in the handicaps.
Go on.
Non-runner, no bet. I have bet O'More Park in the Sun Racing Plate. God knows what that is now, what it used to be. But anyway, I thought he ran really well last year at the festival in the novice handicap. This horse wants quicker ground and has shown his best form around Cheltenham.
Which race are you talking about, Stephen?
The 418. 418? They cannot be off at 418, surely. The Sun, I'm looking at Betfair prices. The Sun Racing Handicap Chase.
On the first day?
On the first day, which will probably be registered as something.
Okay. All right.
I quite like him. I think for previous festival form is a notable plus.
Agree with you. Absolutely agree with you. And you think he's well handicapped?
I think he's well handicapped. And I just thought, Richie, Willie Mullins, and it's that price. I'm on at 33 NRNB, so
yeah.
I think that's fair, and it is important. We saw in Marine Nationale. I've lost quite a bit because I was backing him each way, basically all winter and in doubles and everything. I did try and shield myself with some non-runner no bet, but I'm a bit like Dubai. I've taken a hit, but I'll keep going.
The United Nations, if they're listening to this, you're in trouble, Derbyshire. You know that, don't you?
Well, Tomo's there, so our thoughts are with all the people of Dubai.
Okay, give us the name of the horse again, Stephen, so people can write it down.
O'More Park.
O'More Park. Okay. I'm having one bet and a handicap on the first day. The National Hunt Chase, which derisively has gone back to 3 miles and 6 furlongs. It should always have been 4 miles. But I don't get it.
Wasn't it nicer when amateurs rode it?
And amateur riders.
Ruined it.
I've had an each way bet on Ben Pauling's Pick Rock, who was really impressive when he went at Sandown last time out. He wants all of this 3 miles, 6 furlongs. Yes, he fiddles his fences, but he's been crying out for a step up in trip. 16-1 for me is too big. I'm not a great fan of Ben Jones. That would be my only negative. I think he's lucky to be associated with Ben Pauling, to be honest with you. But he gets on well with Pick Rock, and I think Pick Rock will outrun his price of 16-20-1 in the National Hunt Chase, which is the final race on the card on day one at 5:20. Any other business for day one, Stephen?
No. Let's go to day two. The only day I'll be there.
The only day you'll be there. So if you see Stephen, make sure you go up, get an autograph. It will be worth £1 million in 50 years' time. And make sure you get your picture with him as well. First race on the card is the Turners, the Ballymore Novices Hurdle, whichever way, the Bearing Bingham over 2 miles and 5 furlongs.
Lions, wasn't it, at one time?
It was indeed. And of course, the shape of this race has changed completely by what's running in the Supreme Novices Hurdle. I thought this was massively wide open. The UK's Best entrant is probably No Drama This End, Paul Nicholls and Harry Cobden. Paul Nicholls keeps going on and on about horses that run and win the Challow, which he wins every year, saying this is the new Denman. Even if he was the new Denman, I mean, do you think he's good enough to win this, Stephen?
Come on, you don't know. But I think the first thing is you don't know. I mean, the horse that was full to fit in the Cello won that Premier Novice Hurdle last week at Kelso. Not that the form of that is up to much. I tell you something that's I've not heard anyone mention, and I was just looking at tonight when I was doing the Sandown Fall for Saturday.
Yeah.
Paul Nicholls in the last 2 weeks is running at a 4% strike rate.
Is he really? Is he really? Couldn't
I
happen-
mean,
couldn't
that
happen to an
that
open
puts you
player.
on. I mean, the way I look at this race is you could I think something from Ireland, and it's not as strong as a Supreme, will probably win. And I could see Talk the Talk just coming on the snaff at the last. Now, how am I going to play Talk the Talk? There is a slight concern whether the horse gets up the hill.
You're going to back to lay him?
Well, yes. Yeah, that's exactly how I'll do it. If people don't know what back to lay is, you back the horse. You could just put it in autopilot on the machine. I don't know. I'll probably put him in at 1.6, which is obviously 3 to 5. And I think he may well trade at that. My concern is if he will get up the hill. I think he does. He's got a great chance.
Okay, we'll be able to hear you all around the country if he hits the front halfway up the run. I didn't really have a strong opinion on this race. I thought it was really difficult. If I was going to put up a section, I might have Thomas Cooper's Shuttle Diplomacy. I was really impressed with his win at Naas in a maiden hurdle, where he beat Arcadian Emperor by 4 1/4 lengths. And he's always looked like a horse who needed a little bit further. So maybe a small each way on Shuttle Diplomacy, but nothing really big, nothing that really stood out for me in that opening turners, Stephen. Shall we go on to the Brown Advisory, or whatever you want to call it? It's 2 o'clock.
Sun Alliance.
Days gone by.
Don't you remember? Was it Nick Dundee that fell? Bloody hell, half of Ireland were on Nick Dundee.
Yeah. Do you remember A. Kinsman winning it?
Yes. Was that Twisties?
You old
I don't look
bastard.
old enough.
Oh, tremendous from you. Tremendous work from you. I love it. I love it. Final Demand is still favourite despite blowing out at Leopardstown. Did you get that?
Well, I do, given it's a different horse to Gaelic Warrior, but Gaelic, I got egg on my face, and you know, you've got to learn from your mistakes, haven't you? It's like you just keep going past the speed camera at 60 miles an hour in a 30. You don't do it if it's switched on. So there's a learning point there in terms of, you know, horses can run absolutely abominably, trained by Mullins and come back, but he's no value, is he? I'm interested wherever Cocktail the Van runs. I think he's potential to be a very good horse.
Yeah, I think he runs here for sure.
So I'd be interested in him. I'll probably just have a bet on the day on either him or Wendigo. I think Wendigo, if they're paying 4 places, which they may do, he's solid each way, Wendigo. Whether or not he's good enough to win, I don't know.
Good question.
Obviously, Romeo Coolio coming here adds a bit of, well, if he does come here, the exchanges say he might, adds a bit of spice. At this stage, I've not had a bet, but they've been my 2 most likely.
Okay, I've backed Wendigo at 25s each way anti-post, and I back up your view you just gave there. I'm not sure whether he's got the class. I think he wants a real out-and-out test of stamina to bring that into play coming around the home bend, and I think he'd probably be better off on the new course rather than the old course. But that's my only
You
play.
could see him in the National next year, couldn't you? It's a very good jumper. So.
Absolutely, because when you run in the National, you have to kind of fiddle your fences. You don't want to stand off them. You want to get underneath them and pop, pop, pop. And I think that's what he does best of all. So although I've backed him each way, I'm not massively hopeful, I have to say. So interesting views there. Neither of us really strong on that race, which brings us to the Queen Mother Champion Chase at 4:00, the feature event. And of course, I don't want to hurt you and get on your motor neurons at this stage by mentioning the horse that has recently been pulled out, which leaves Majborough, who's going to start at odds on. Many people saying, oh, he's the best bet at the festival. He can't lose now, Stephen.
Well, he could beat himself, and I think in terms of the opposition,
Yeah.
he's much the best horse in the race, isn't he?
Talent-wise.
By some margin. The problem with this race, and I'm probably not going to have a bet, and I may well not have a bet. I might just try and fiddle the without markets and, possibly even do something stupid like that Sans Segal to come in the first four or something ridiculous like that. Majborough looked absolutely reformed at Leopardstown, but A, Leopardstown isn't Cheltenham. B, it's different ground. C, will the headgear work again? And D, will the horse jump proficiently? So there's all these sort of questions. In terms of raw talent, yes, of course he'll win. But, raw talent doesn't win national hunt races a lot, some of the time. So he's even money as we speak on the machine. I wouldn't be backing him anti-post at that, and I certainly wouldn't back him on the day at that. I don't get this fascination with Il Était Temps. I don't think the horse is good enough. I thought L'Eau de Sud was awful at Ascot, and the rest of them patently aren't good enough. But this race has produced shocks in the past. You remember when Défi de Soy was up. I think I was on Défi de Soy that year at something like 4-1.
Yeah.
And he started 3 on, didn't lay any off, and I mean, I was just stupid. But again, you learn from your mistakes. I just think this is a no bet race because it's it's this thing about talent versus other horses, and of the other horses, they're about as exciting as an over 50s topless darts competition.
Well, I'd go and watch that.
Well, you would.
I
For the saggy one.
The other interesting thing which we haven't mentioned, which is worth putting at this stage, is the weather forecast. So between now and Monday, predominantly dry, and temperatures are unusually high for this time of the year for drying out both of the tracks, and the new course obviously more than the old course because it hasn't had as much racing. And then overall through the 4 days, I worked out, and I've gone on 4 or 5 different weather sites, there's a 49% chance of very light rain from Tuesday to Friday. So that will, I think, merely maintain the going as it starts on Tuesday. I'm not saying that Majborough needs mud. I thought the other thing to mention about Majborough is that he had things all his own way at Leopardstown. I'm not saying he was massively flattered, but I thought he was flattered to a certain extent because he was left alone out in front and allowed to do his own thing. Having said that, on the other hand, it's a weak Queen Mother, and if he puts in a clear round, you're right. I agree with you massively. He's the most likely winner. But would I back him now at 10-11 and he could start at 4-6, 4-7? No, I'd rather leave the race alone. There are 30 other races to play at Cheltenham, and therefore I could sit and admire if he does hold up in the second day feature. That's the way.
Precisely. You said it was a weak Queen Mother. She always was. She went round in a golf buggy.
You'll be doing that in 20 years' time. The bumper. Did you want to comment on the bumper?
Look, I have never backed the winner.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I might have told my dad to back Dato's Star when I was about 10 or something. I'd be 8. Remember Dato Star? Great.
I do, yeah. I do.
The only thing I will say is I thought Broadway Ted won despite not much encouragement from the saddle at the DRF. Look, these are very, very difficult races to compute because a lot of bumpers are just run at absolute crawls, and then trying to sort of equate the form over is incredibly difficult. It's not my sort of party. It might be yours, but no.
Okay. Let's do the handicaps then for Wednesday. The old Coral Cup is no longer 10 GMs. Of course, there's the Grand Annual as well. I like in the Grand Annual a former course and distance winner in Jazzy Matty. Did you see his run at Thurles in a handicap hurdle on the 18th of Jan? I thought it was an absolute disgrace because he was never put in the race. He was punted into 5-1 in a field of 13, and he was never put in the race. And his mark of 1:43 does excite me. The last time he ran in a chase was on the 30th of July in the Galway Plate when he didn't get home over 2 3/4 miles. But you could have named him the winner between the third and the second last. I think he's a very solid each way play here at round about 12 or 14-1, and the drying ground will help him. He's my only bet in the handicaps on Wednesday, Jazzy Matty in the Grand Annual. What about you, Stephen?
At this stage, I completely agree with everything you've said.
Is there no but?
There's no but. I completely agree with everything you've said. There is one bet in the handicaps, and it's Jazzy Matty, and it's for the exact reasons.
Yeah.
I did put him up on Sky actually a few weeks ago.
Did you really?
Should have been watching. Yeah. I think he's a great chance. Yeah. I think what they've done is they've sort of worked back from last year and said, we've got to come back again. And what is the best path to victory? And I think they've probably followed it to the letter. I think he'll run. I think he'll run very, very well indeed. I'm not a big fan of Be Aware's jumping in that either, but I'm more interested in him than any other handicap pool. So we've come up with the same one. So yes.
But that is interesting because we didn't confer beforehand.
We don't confer.
No,
I'll tell you why we don't confer.
Yeah.
Because it does rather, it can sort of throw spanners in works.
Hugely so. Is fact to file a good thing for the Ryanair?
I think he's going to run in the Ryanair.
Is he a good thing though?
Look, with drying ground, I bet 2 Annie posts for this at reasonable prices. I think Hartwood is very solid. You look last year, I'd rather Fat File didn't run. I think you can apply this to them all. And I bet Matata at a huge price. I'll tell you why I bet Matata.
Tell me.
Well, he ran probably somewhere to around 160, 161 when he won on New Year's Day. And that sort of figure might just be enough for him to get a place in this. So if you go through what might run at this stage, so here's my list.
Yep.
Fact to File, Banbridge, Hartwood. The exchanges say John Bon isn't going to go. I don't think Gaelic Warrior is going to go. Impere Pass, JPR1, Matata, plus maybe a Rag. I'm not. So I think at this stage, I'd rather back Hartwood and Matata each way. Now, it is just worth pointing out that anti-post bet in each way, you will get a fifth the first 3. So non-runner, no bet, a fifth the first 3. If we get less than, and this could turn into a great each way bet, because Fact to File is a bit. He's not like Majborough, but he is in a way. He's not bomb-proof.
Well, no horse is bomb-proof.
Well, there are some. I think Frankel was pretty bomb-proof.
Not if he'd have raced abroad, he wasn't.
No, but oh dear.
Rather like some of those Hong Kong horses that won't race abroad, and everybody reports on the big Hong Kong meetings, oh, he's won 12 Group 1s on the trot. Yeah, but, go go and take on the very best in the world. Anyway, that's an argument for another day. But de facto,
But the point being is, you might get 6 or 7 runners, and you could have 3 places, and they would be my 2. It's interesting. Romeo Coolio is still quoted on the Ryanair markets. I don't think he'll run.
He doesn't go there because they're foolish.
No.
He doesn't go there. A Factor Foul puts at the same performance as last year. He wins. I backed him anti-post in October at 11-4 in some doubles with some other horses. I think if he takes this alternative, which is almost certain he will do, and I don't get why they're not going for the Gold Cup, I think he wins doing handsprings. But I get your point with Hartwood and Motata. Take that in mind, because if there are 5 or 6 runners, you're almost certainly going to draw. And if something happens to Factor File, you're probably going to win. End of the story. End of the story, for sure. Okay, interesting. Not much to say really, apart from the placings for Stephen. What about the big hurdles race of the day? The Stayers Hurdle, which is an absolutely awful category this year, until Dan Skelton had a change of mind and put in Cabral de Mathan instead of running him at Fontwell and Aintree, until Emma Lavelle unveiled a course and distance specialist in Marchantou, taking on the 2 horses in the same ownership, Teahupoo, which I think Irish supporters massively overrate. They think he's a god, but he isn't, and the remarkable Bob Ollinger, Stephen.
Yeah, Teahupoo, he reminds me a bit of Sarah Ferguson.
He's not ginger, is he?
No, but he was great one time. He sort of made a comeback last year, and it might all go tits this year.
He was great one time. Is that because you used to fancy Sarah Ferguson? I bet it was.
No, I just meant popular with the public.
Oh, okay.
Terrible analogy.
You didn't make that clear, because when you mentioned her name, there was a massive smile across your face, Mr. Derbyshire.
Yes, well, if you mention anything to do with Sarah Ferguson, Prince Andrew, or Peter Mandelson, everybody thinks, well, I think, what a prick, or what a idiot. Anyway,
Agreed.
How have we got on to Sarah Ferguson from the Stayers Hurdle? Well, I've been backing Cabral du Mathan for some time. I mean, the owner actually grabbed me at Sandown. I saw him at Ada. Lovely owners, Neil and Alfie. Really nice people.
So to the
Yes, and I did say, please run in the Stayers Hurdle. I've been backing this horse quietly since November. I actually think it's this simple. I think the ground's going to be right. I think he's the best horse in the race. And I actually think if he stays, he'll win. Yeah. And he would be probably my best bet of the week, even now. I think he should be shorter. Look, he's only 5-1. I think he's a serious talent. If you look at some of those sectionals for the Relkeel on New Year's Day,
amazing.
You've got the Cheltenham form. It's everything but the distance. And I suppose you do have to stay in this race, but I've a feeling he will. Of the rest, I've sort of said, well, I've got so much on Cabral, I need to save on something. I couldn't have Teahupoo. Could not have Teahupoo. There's a lot of people saying Bob Ollinger, and you can go along with the argument of Big Bucks and Barracuda and all those who were prolific. I have a feeling, if you look at Marchantou and Paisley Park, they're fairly similar horses in their second season.
Yeah.
I.e., they came on a hell of a lot. They've got the Cheltenham form in the bank, and I think Marchantou is the danger. I think this will stay in this country. Do you know what's special about Marchantou, the horse?
Tell me.
The return of jump racing at Windsor, he was the first winner.
Well, that's really enthralling, Stephen.
It is. It is to us anoraks.
And you are the Parker of all anoraks, aren't you?
Yes, and you're the bloody cagoule.
Do you know what? I thought this was interesting. I agree with you, Cabral de Mathan. When he ran in the Road Hill, he made that mistake 2 out. and it would have knocked a lot of other horses out. But he was straight away back on the bridle. And I thought that was hugely, hugely impressive. If Gordon Elliott didn't have Teahupoo and Honest Policy in here, I think he would have run Wad, who I thought would have been a shoe-in with the mare's £7 allowance. But obviously, because those two are running, they've put her in the mare's hurdle. But I'd love to have seen her in the stayers hurdle. So we're in agreement again. Cabral du Mathan, ground doesn't get too bad. He can go through it. That turn of foot and his high-class cruising speed, I think, has been under realised by a lot of people when I've listened to these panels. And I think he could be something very, very special. So if he does win and all those anti-post bets come in for you, I will be expecting beef with black bean sauce and green peppers when I pop up to Lancashire later in the year.
Yes, I'll even supply you a Chinese chef.
Oh, you're an absolute darling. Well, I love it. He's not even going to ask his lovely wife to cook for him in any case. Handicap hurdles, handicap chases, plenty of handicaps on day number 3. Do you have an interest in any of these, Stephen?
I think the Jack Richards is an absolutely... he's flashing. Preview the mare's hurdle. The bloody thing shouldn't exist.
Yeah, I agree.
You want to preview the mare's hurdle? It's shit.
No, let's not do it. I'm not interested at all.
Yeah, we're doing it on humanitarian grounds. So they're good at Cheltenham, get rid of it, or make it a 0 to 150 and run it in 8.
Right.
There we go.
You're right. The Jack Richards is a cracker, isn't it, this year?
Well, it is. But, you know, we've got Cocktail Divan again, haven't we?
Yeah, but he's going in the Brown Advisory, so let's do the preview without him.
I think Meet Me by the Sea has been laid out for it. I just thought it was incredibly tricky. I wouldn't back Meet Me by the Sea. He's currently 5 to 1 on Betfair. I wouldn't back him at that.
Yeah. For
all I think he's the most likely winner.
Yeah.
I'm a bit disappointed they put 6 Mile Bridge in, to be honest. I thought he'd have been interesting in one of the novice races. I think he should have the chance to show his class. In open company. The Pretemps, surely Supremely West has got a drift. I mean, he's 9 to 2 at the moment on the machine. I think he'll start Betfair SP. This is Betfair SP at about 7, 8 to 1. Yeah. Other exchanges are available. I think La Vida she's a very, very likable mare who could go well. For all that, you know, she was fancy prices a few weeks back. She's now come into what I would term to be probably reflecting her chance. So if she drifts, she'd be interesting. And I've no opinion in the Kimmiel whatsoever. I thought they were very, very tricky on Thursday.
Pretemps doesn't interest me at all. Jack Richards does, and I think of the forgotten horse in this field has come in for a lot of support in the last 3 or 4 days. Slade Steele, who's been run over 3 miles on really deep ground on his last 2 runs, and there's a reason for that, because they wanted to get him handicapped for this 2.5 miler on better ground. I was on at 12 to 1. I think he's about 8 or 9s now, but he's a spring ground horse, and his second to Predator's Gold at Navan in early December reads quite well now, but he must have spring ground. I think a mark of 146 underestimates him, and Henry can find form at the Cheltenham Festival from left or right of field all of a sudden. And I think he's about to run, and he needs to run, Stephen, but I think he's about to run by a long way a chase best. He's still a maiden over fences, third on 4 occasions from 5 runs, but I think he's handicapped to run an absolutely monster race here. I've had one of my biggest each way bets on him. My biggest each way bet is coming later in the week, but I thought he had an absolutely outstanding chance in this race, and I'll be interested to see as we go through the night before and the morning of the race if there's a lot of money for him, because I think he could be one of the big gambles of the day.
There we go. There we go. Should we move on to Friday, where I think
Do Friday.
I think you
Take us through Friday. What's the first race you wanna take?
well, I think we start at the Triumph, don't we? Which is obviously the first race on Friday. I thought Salmon de Very, I think, could have beaten. What was that horse called that was favourite for this? Bloody hell!
No has.
You know what? Yes, I think could have beaten that, or gone very close to beating that. It was a very considerate ride at the DRF.
Very.
Maybe drying ground wouldn't necessarily suit. Look, Minella. I think in terms of form, in Minella's study, not particularly fashionable to tip an Adam Nicol horse, but if Minella's study was trained by anyone else who was, say, a Henderson. I mean, there's good reason for it, because a lot of these small traders don't have chance in races like this. But that performance, and if you use One Horse Town as a sort of collateral horse of the way he disposed of One Horse Town versus what Maestro Conti did with One Horse Town, I think he's a bit of value here. I think he'll run very, very well. He looked so good that day, didn't he? I was sat next to Ryan Mania last night, and poor Ryan's absolutely bricking himself because he knows that this horse has considerable talent.
Yeah, his speed figure is top of my list for the Triumph. I do my own speed figures, and I have him a long way clear on the speed figures. Add to that,
he's worth a bet, isn't he? I mean, 8-1.
He's a ridiculous price, and add to that his course. He's won over the course and distances as a plus. I actually think it'll be very close between him and Salma de Very. I think that mare's allowance, which I've always deemed stupid. I don't get the mare's allowance. I think it's sexist and it's a load of bollocks. I think Salma de Very takes a big step forward for that run. And I think she may just be too good for him at the weights. I take your view that Connections probably wouldn't want the ground to dry out too much, but first race of the day, if they do after water, is the best time probably to have a race if you want a bit of dig in the ground. And them are two against the field. I backed Salma de Very a couple of weeks ago.
A lot of agreement on here, Paul.
Yeah, I think she's got a huge edge in. And I think the two we've spoken about should be well clear. Proactive, who I think is a soft horse, and Maestro Conti.
Yeah, I didn't get that
as well.
Didn't get Proactive being favourite, did you?
I don't get it at all. I think he'll drift on the day. I really do think he'll drift on the day, big time. What else do we want to talk about? Albert Bartlett, which is a race I absolutely abhor having a bet in. Yourself, what do you feel?
I bet two. I have to say.
Stephen, you surprised me. You
Well,
me down with
to be fair, I don't usually name check other tipsters, but Andy Holden is all over this devil, and he's got a point on that River Don. That River Don was comfortably the best novice hurdle this year, so I'm sort of still in his line.
Okay.
But I did have a look at what he was saying, and I did have a bit on the devil, because his point was salient. I backed one at a huge price here.
Pray tell.
Now, Ubatoba. Now, the problem, I'm going to give you the issue.
Oh, that's Ollie Murphy's, isn't it?
The issue is Ben Sutton will ride, and the big issue was at Haydock, the horse was never ever put in the trial for this. But if you watch the ride back, I mean, surely to God, Ollie Murphy must be in Ben Sutton's ear saying, you were too far back at Haydock. You was waiting, just had no chance of making the ground up. So the best advice I can give Ben Sutton is just track an experienced jockey on a fancy one, because they will get the sectionals right for you. I think he's a very, very talented horse. I've been fiddling with him at anywhere on the machine between 60 and 100 to 1 for a while now, and I think I could see him. This race has produced shocks in the past, and I think he'll stay. You've got to stay. I think he's interested in a huge price.
Okay, that's really, really interesting, fascinating view. And if he wins, you can add to my beef and green peppers half a crispy duck with pancakes if he goes in. Is that
We
fair?
might just get some fried rice for
Oh, very nice. Very nice indeed. Let's talk about the Gold Cup, which, rather like the Supreme Novices, which started off our preview, has great strength in depth this year, which is lovely to see, which is why the first and second last year aren't even in the first three in the betting. I think it's a really difficult race to unravel, to digest and cogitate, because I think you could probably choose three in the race. Even us, we could choose three in the race and not get the winner.
Well, I'll tell you what I don't, but I'll go through them. I don't think the jukebox man will get up the hill.
Okay.
I've got doubts about Gaelic Warrior doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Galloping, you have got to be very good to come back, and there's just signs that this horse has just slightly passed his peak. I'm not into Haiti Killer, I'm afraid. I think that has a lot to find. I thought Grey Dawning was disappointing, even though it wasn't. He obviously wasn't cherry ripe for the pillar. Factor File ain't gonna run. I don't think Spillane's Tower's good enough. I suspect. I think Django By is by far and away the most solid one. For this, I just hope, Nico was a bit wide at Kempton, but he just looks like a Gold Cup horse, doesn't he?
Yes.
And I think he's probably got the class, and I thought Ascot was very good. And for probably one of the greatest training performances of all time, I think the vibes coming out of Ireland are that I know the way you're thinking is back, and if he is, he will take a hell of a lot of feeds. I've had a little bit on him and a little bit on Django By, but in all honesty, I had more on the claim yesterday at Catterick than I will back in this race. It's just a race to watch, isn't it?
Well, I thought it was interesting from a makeup shape of view. What do I mean by the makeup of a race? Who's going to possibly lead? Who's going to be the pressers? In other words, second, third, fourth, probably fifth. Who's going to race in mid-div? And who's going to be held up? And I think Sean Byrne can only ride Haiti Galores one way. He's got to make it a test of stamina, because that's all this horse has got. And I think he may well take it up even at a stage that he did before the Welsh National. Welsh National winners have carried big weights, have got a good record in this event. And I think he'll go close. But I think he sets this up for an out and out and out and out stayer. And I'm happy to forgive Iron Maximus's run in the Irish Gold Cup on the 2nd of Feb, but the ground is too soft. You look at the balance of his form, and he wants springer ground. It was much quicker ground when he ran a really strong finishing second in the Savills behind Affordable Fury. And I can see whoever rides Iron Maximus holding him up off a really fast pace. And I think nothing is going to be finishing more strongly up the hill than Iron Maximus. Now, don't get me wrong, Stephen. I'm not saying he's going to win, but I think he's around about 50 on the exchanges. He's 33-40 to 1 the fixed odds. And I think most bookmakers will offer first four in the Gold Cup. If the race is run as I believe it will be run, I cannot see Iron Maximus being out the first four. And I will be having a big bet in the place market on him, because I think the first 5 or 6 in the betting and those that finish in the first four in the King George are much of a muchness. But rather, like you said, I think there are question marks about all of them, to be honest.
Yeah, there are. I mean that's fair enough. And you think of all the stayers who've either won this or all been placed in this. I mean, Jesus Christ, Buddy Trucks Tavern was placed in this. You sometimes that comes into it, and you don't. I just don't like a horse with stamina question marks in the Gold Cup. I mean, they've all got to try it once, I suppose, but you sort of get the feel, and there's a gut of what will win and what, unfortunately, will be wilting up that great hill.
Yeah, I agree with you. I absolutely agree. Handicaps of the final day, when many people will be trying to buy back the shirts that they've given up
Well,
during the
there's the. We're not even going to touch on the mares chase because
No.
that's shit.
Not interested.
Not interested at all.
County hurdle?
The county hurdle. Well, all the fancy prizes have gone on Sinatra. I am assured, because I did speak to the owner, that Sinatra's going to be some chaser. I mean, mentally needs to come on a bit.
If he does it his way, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, in all honesty, I rather look on the day of race markets at a race like the county hurdle.
Okay.
Because I think at this stage it's completely and utterly bloody impossible. I mean, we must point out, of course, that the handicaps we were previewing earlier in the week, we've half an idea what's going to run because these horses are entered and there's been some scratchings. Trying to call the county hurdle at this stage is nigh on impossible. And do you know what? I do every year? I just think, oh, balls to this. I ain't having a bet in the Martin Pied because look, I think a lot of bad gamblers bet in the Martin Pied because they think they're gonna try and win back all their losses, and it is an absolute minefield of a race.
Agree with you. Well, I've had two very big bets in the county hurdle anti-post, which is very unlike me. We mentioned in the champion hurdle that Work Ahead may run there. I prefer it if he skips the champion hurdle and runs in the county hurdle off a mark of 148, which I think is hugely workable. Now, I spoke to Henry de Bromhead last week, and I just couldn't get out of him whether he's going to run in the champion hurdle or the county. I'm hoping he runs in the county hurdle, because if he really thought when he won that Leopardstown Maiden that he had a potential champion hurdle horse on his hands, off 148 in the county, I think he's huge. I think he's 16 or 20 to 1 at the moment. And you're going to get 6 places with a lot of bookmakers in the county hurdle with a maximum field. But I've also backed him up with the juvenile hurdle winner from last year, Put Your Hands Together, who I believe, what's a way of putting it diplomatically, that he's been aimed at this.
Yes, I was going to say something very similar.
Well, he's a horse that, for some reason, big fields suit him. Remember, he won I thought, a very, very good renewal of the Irish Cesarewitch on the flat at the back end of last year. And he's only had one run since, and it was a quiet run in a listed handicap hurdle at Fairyhouse, where he had a very inexperienced jockey on board. And there's a reason why that jockey was on board, because he rode him way too close for the pace. He has to be held up. He's a creepy, closer horse that has a turn of foot, and only has a turn of foot for about 50 yards or so, which is how he won the juvenile hurdle last year. And I believe there's still room to manoeuvre off his mark of 146. And those two horses, as I say, very unusual for me, Stephen. I've had,
It is.
I won't say maximum bets on each of them each way, but I've had substantial bets each way. And if either of those two or both of them run in the race and one of them wins, I will match your beef and green peppers with half a crispy duck and fried rice, and I will get you whatever you want on the menu for as many days that you want.
That is wonderful. That is wonderful.
I knew that would warm a couple of
I'll be as big as a bus and a walking bloody aneurysm victim, won't I? But
tell me, Stephen, if you were to have one bet during the whole meeting, and you had to put your life on it, which is a stupid thing to say, but I'm going to say it in any case, what would it be?
Plan Paradise in the full miler at Hexham next week.
Fantastic.
Have a look who trains that. There you go. No, at Cheltenham, yeah, probably Cabral Doom of Town.
Okay, well, I've
and you're going first race. You're firing your guns early.
Yeah, I'm coming prematurely with Mighty Park and the Supreme, but I think those two in the county hurdle are really close behind. And I think the weather's not going to be too much of a problem. I think we're going to have static going for most of the meeting, which is what as punters we want when you're backing anti-potion. You try and forecast what the weather is going to do. I think there's some fascinating graded events. And as we've said, as we've talked through the 4 days, Stephen, there's some great arguments going on here. And in a lot of races, we've held our hands up and said, you know what? I'm not interested. I really don't want to touch that race at all. And anybody listening, without sounding patronising at all, you do have the alternative of not backing a horse in the race. And as you said, by saying that you want to back at another meeting this weekend, a 5-1 winner at any other track during any other time of the year is worth the same as a 5-1 winner at Cheltenham. And people just bet at Cheltenham.
Yeah.
Because it's Cheltenham and it's rubbish.
No, but what the other thing I would say is, that I talked about the Catholic claiming hurdle yesterday.
Yeah.
But nobody really looks at it right. So you've more chance of a price being wrong than at Cheltenham. And the more people look at a race, it's like, when you see those graphs as scatters.
Yes.
People are going to get roughly what percentage chance horses will be. So your chances of finding value away from bookmaker offers aren't that good, unless there might be some sort of avenue you go down. We've mentioned a few tonight, but I think I know people who bet ridiculous percentages of their betting bank on Cheltenham.
Yeah.
And in reality, I don't. I've probably ran a little bit more this year than I normally would, but mainly on Cabral du Matin, by the way. And it's nice to dream. And look, there's a great feeling, isn't there, when you're going into Cheltenham or whatever race, and you've got some anti-post slip at a fancy price, and you think you're the king dog.
Yeah.
And then the king dog gets put down.
Yeah, I agree with you. Value is very subjective. Just to declare everybody, Racing Alternatives was brought to you in conjunction with NRG Bet. We will have a daily preview the day before each of the 4 races. And again, it will be really quick. We're looking at 15 to 20 minutes to update everything we've said now, because you can never have information late enough in the day for a festival like Cheltenham. So join us for our 4 previews, Monday night for Tuesday, Tuesday night for Wednesday, etc., all the way through next week, and we'll tell you what we've heard on the grapevine, as well as maybe slightly changing our views on each of the big races or the races we've given.
Yes, you can change your views. We are in a democracy.
We are.
Look, just quickly, if people are having a bet this weekend, because I know, as we've said, they all pay the same. I could not believe Calimistic was not favourite for the 3:35 at Sandown on Saturday, and I think conditions are absolutely ideal, and it's a horse on the app. So there we are.
Drying conditions. Okay.
Drying.
What
Well,
price
he is irrigated.
Stephen, what price are we looking at?
It was 9-2. We're at midnight on Friday. We're burning the midnight oil together, aren't we?
We are indeed, and that is the Racing Alternatives overall preview of the 2026 Cheltenham Festival. For the time being, I wish Stephen Derbyshire and yourselves au revoir.
Au revoir.